So, welcome back to the Rise with Anita podcast, or welcome if you're new here. This is a space where we explore what it really means to rise, not just individually, but collectively. Because true transformation isn't about what we heal within ourselves, it's about how we show up in the world, how we give, how we lead, and the legacy we create through that. And today's conversation is such a beautiful reflection of that. I'm joined by Janet Driver, Director of Partnerships for the Unstoppable Foundation. She's also a mother, a wife, and truly a woman who embodies what it means to live with a giving spirit. The Unstoppable Foundation is a humanitarian organization that empowers lives through education, not just through access, but can I just start over?
Yeah, just go again.
Thank you. Cool. All right. Welcome back to the Rise with Anita podcast, or welcome if you're new here. This is a space where we explore what it really means to rise, not just individually, but collectively. Because true transformation isn't about what we heal within ourselves, it's also about how we show up in the world, how we give, how we lead, and the legacy we create through that. And today's conversation is such a beautiful reflection of that. I'm joined by Janet Driver, Director of Partnerships for the Unstoppable Foundation. She's also a mother, a wife, and truly a woman who embodies what it means to live with a giving spirit. The Unstoppable Foundation is a humanitarian organization that empowers lives through education, not just through access, but equipping individuals, families, and entire communities with the mindset, leadership, and the skills they need to truly thrive. And what I love most about their work is that they don't just focus on the external resources, they focus on what happens within the individual, which, as you know, is something we deeply believe in here. But before we dive in, firstly, I just want to say I'm super excited about this episode. But also, a practice I have with my guests and the listeners is I like to ground us into the conversation so that we actually truly arrive here. So would you mind taking a breath with me?
Sure.
So if you're able to, while listening, just gently place your feet on the ground, relax your shoulders, unclench the jaw, and take a slow breath through your nose. Trying to do it for like a count of 4. Hold for 4, 2, 3, 4, and gently exhale through the mouth for 6. And one more time, we're going to breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale for 6. And right now you're just going to notice, where am I? And how am I arriving to this conversation? What am I carrying into this moment? No need to change anything. Just be cautious of your awareness. And from that place, we begin. So, like I said, I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Huge honor for me.
So I start all my podcasts with this one simple question. What is bringing you joy in this current season?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I have to be honest, I am a very joyful person. So I tend to find joy in things that might not be as, mainstream as what other people find. But I am just loving our weather every day. It is so beautiful. We've had a combination of black storm clouds and cool, breezy afternoons, and then some really basking, warm sun. So I'm just enjoying being out in it, and it has brought me so much joy. I'm sure that's probably more simple than what you were looking for, but it really has just been a beautiful time. And we live in a town where historically we can have some really extreme heat. And we did. What was it, 5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? Yeah. We were in the hundreds. And so that was unexpected. So it's just been a beautiful surprise, extended spring weather. So that's bringing me a lot of joy.
Well, transparently speaking, I like finding joy in the simple things, which is why I asked the question. And I have to admit, I'm with you on the spring weather. I've been loving the fact that it's in like the 80s and like 70s for once, rather than the hundreds. So I'm appreciating the little moments, definitely.
It's been nice.
So before we dive in, I'd love to start with your story. How did you find the Unstoppable Foundation and what drew you so deeply into this work?
That's a really great question. I really came to this organization pretty much, I would say, through the back door, like unexpectedly. And so I spent the bulk of my career working in the entertainment industry. And as my kids grew up, when they were young, I used to volunteer a lot for different nonprofit organizations. We lived in Los Angeles. I was really involved with battered women's shelters. I did a lot of volunteering there. And then also cancer-stricken children's organizations. Those were kind of my two. And I had such a heart for them. And I always thought that when my kids grew up, that I would get involved doing disaster relief. I was thinking maybe like with the American Red Cross, do something international. So that was always in my mind and really on my heart. And then as my kids were just graduating from high school and the last one was like leaving for college, and my parents needed my help with their end of life era. And so I converted from being a full-time employee to being a contracted employee, still within the entertainment industry. And I worked for the company that was hired by the Unstoppable Foundation to produce their beautiful annual black tie gala. They had it at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. It was on the same stage as the Golden Globes were produced from. So it was a large-scale event and not what they do. And so they hired a professional production team to produce the stage part of it. So singers, dancers, awards that are given just like the Golden Globes would be. And so I worked on that on the back end for a while, for a couple of years, at least 2 or 3 years, writing scripting and just working on the project. And I began to really love what they did, just reading about them and learning about them. And they had no idea who I was. And then a couple of times in a row, I worked on the actual production. So I started to get to know them. And then one year, they had an internal member of their team who was responsible for producing the gala who had to leave for some unforeseen emergency. It was kind of a last-minute departure. And it was about 6 weeks before their gala. So if you know anything about producing a show of that magnitude, at that point, you're no longer taking a day off. You're just like all in around the clock. And so I ended up taking that role interim. It was going to be like a 6-week gig, if you will. And I just fell so in love with them. And we had such a great connection. I never left. I'm still here. And this is year 9 for me. So I'm really excited that I've been able to be here. It feels like it's been much shorter than that, but then it's hard for me to remember a time when I wasn't here. It's like a good marriage. You hear people say that about your marriage. It feels like we've always been married, but yet it feels like yesterday. And so I feel like that about the Unstoppable Foundation. It has fulfilled so many of my dreams.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, was there a moment where you actually found that this isn't just a role, it became part of your purpose?
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because a lot of my friends were saying to me, wow, like you are really into this. And I mean, it was true. It really was changing me. And I did change. I work with somebody named Cynthia Kersey. She's our founder and our CEO. And she has such a generous spirit. She has taught me so many parts of what I do, but also not just, the part of the career or the workplace, but something very human inside. She has such a gracious, generous, giving spirit. And through her example, she's really taught me to grow in a lot of ways. And so as I grew as a person and as I fell more in love with this very humble, precious people that we serve, we work in Kenya in Eastern Africa. And I just was more and more engaged. But really, like the people in my life that were the closest to me were commenting, "You are so into this. It's amazing." And they were right. But that's when I really started noticing it, when people started mentioning it to me. Yeah.
So it was like the external coming through and
Definitely.
showing you there was a spark of light, perhaps, of, hey, you look like you're actually enjoying something. And I'm sure with an entertainment background, you probably didn't have that same fulfillment or spark in it.
I was the most fulfilled when I was taking my experience from entertainment and delivering it to like battered women's shelters. And that it just really fulfilled something in me. And so, yes, definitely it has checked all of my boxes.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what did this work awaken in you personally?
Well, I didn't even have this opportunity presented to me until at the end of my parents' lives. So ironically, and they didn't know this at the time, but my mom's funeral was the week before my job was to start. And so it was a time when when you care for elderly parents, you have kind of this role reversal where you're feeling like the parent and they become like the child. So that in itself has a certain element of trauma to it. It's just hard. And living in a different state, that was challenging. My mom was just always terrified every time I said, I'm leaving, and she would cry. And it was just emotional. And so then to have lost them and then start this role, there was such a transference of that trauma that immediately was just soothed by serving. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but if you've ever been in the situation where you're serving through trauma, it is one of the most healing components of recovery. And so I experienced that at a very deep level very early on. I was being able to touch lives and do things for others and just give to others. And I just saw that it not only did it gratify such a need that I really wanted to do at this stage of my life, but also it really helped me grow through just that era of saying goodbye to my parents. So it was very precious.
That's beautiful. So it actually reminds me of how often Tony Robbins usually says the secret to living is giving.
Mm-hmm.
Because the famous story he has is when he was at his brokest point, he gave his last final dollars to someone else, and then he found himself running home. But when he got home, he realized he was taken care of. And it was just this, if you serve from an unconditional place, you will be taken care of. And that's not the reason to serve. But I think that the message there is just, if you're able to get outside of yourself, you will be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that.
Yeah, I definitely felt that very much, and still do. I mean, it's never left, and it's been a long time I've been here, and my role evolves, and the organization evolves. Time has changed a lot, and we all went through COVID, and that changed a lot. And but it's always fresh, it's always exciting, it's always challenging me personally, very personally, and so I feel like I grow, and it's a great joy.
Beautiful answer.
Yeah.
So for someone who's listening to this podcast episode and has no idea about the Unstoppable Foundation, what truly would you say is the heart of the mission?
Thank you. That's so great. So we have spent the past 2 decades focusing on helping families in rural Kenya. So when I say rural, I mean think like the bush country, think like Gilligan's Island, like families that don't live in homes, they don't have infrastructure, there's no bank, there's no grocery store, and they have a very tribal, primitive type of lifestyle, and without electricity, and unfortunately without essential needs. So their needs are not met. And so when the Unstoppable Foundation comes to those communities, we provide all of their needs. So we have 5 pillars of care. We have food, water, health care, income training, which is how we create a sustainable environment. And then it always boils down to education. We are essentially about providing education because we have learned, and wiser, brighter people than myself have learned, that education is the key to ending poverty long term. And so that's always the bottom line for what we do is educating people. We're giving them the tools and the resources to overcome the challenges they were born into. We're removing the roadblocks that block kids from going to school. And so that's what we've been doing. And now our focus as we continue to grow and mature and develop and gain more wisdom and gain time, we're really focusing on leadership development. And that's such an exciting part of our future. And so we're really laying down just the groundwork now for developing that for 3 different categories of people. We've got 3 different age groups. Basically, we've got youth, and then we've got young adults, and then we also bring it back to the entire community. So we're giving it to the adults, and they're teaching it to the children. And this way, they are receiving all of the resources they need to overcome those challenges so that not only can they sustain their lives and do well, but they can grow and that ripple effect will change entire communities. Because Kenya is a very important nation in Africa, and in the future of the world, they will continue to be a focal point. And so we have an opportunity now. Within the next 25 years, Africa will house 25% of the world's population.
Wow.
And so right now, there is so much poverty still. There are still millions of people that live below the poverty level, and that's an important thing to recognize. We have an opportunity to change that. So if that huge segment of the world's population is shaped by poverty, we're going to walk away with great challenges. If we can bring leadership and we can give them all the tools and the resources they need, then we have an opportunity for, especially with that ripple effect, if we can impact whole communities at a time, then we can move across that huge population of the world and bring leadership and prosperity and success, and we can train them a different, better way. And so we have an impact that we can make, and this is the time.
Beautiful answer. And I'm curious, what makes your approach to education different? Well, the Unstoppables.
Sure. So I don't know necessarily that our approach to education is that different. I think the fact that we remove the roadblocks that prevent kids in this region of the world from receiving education, that's what's different. There's a lot of well-intended other organizations, and I don't mean to take a swipe at anybody, people whose hearts are in the right place, who really want to make a difference in the world, who've built schools. But building a school does not ensure that you can fill it with kids until you remove all the other roadblocks. So that has been our primary focus, is getting those roadblocks
Handled.
out of the way, yeah. And we have effectively done that. So we have been very successful in the communities that we've raised up. We've got 22 independent autonomous communities that we've started that were not survivable when we first worked with them, and we brought them to a place of total survivability. But now we're going back and we're dealing with those same communities, and we're bringing them leadership development so that they can go beyond surviving, so they can begin to thrive and continue and have their own impact on Kenya and subsequently on Africa.
That's so beautiful. And I love that you brought up that technically you can build a school, but if you don't handle the rest of it, doesn't mean you'll be able to fill up the school. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious, have you actually been able to visit Kenya yet? Or is that on your heart of hearts you're planning to?
Well, both. I have had the huge honor to go to Kenya, and it's always on my heart to go back to Kenya. So both are correct. And so I'm very grateful I've been able to go and meet the people and see the programs that we've put in place and see the children that we've served. And then as well, we've had opportunities over the years where we've been able to bring some of the members of those communities here to the United States, to be part of events. And so I've had that opportunity to connect with them as well. And there's always something very precious and profound to learn from this culture. It's so different from how we live our lives. When my kids were growing up, we used to say, kids that have everything appreciate nothing.
Yeah.
And kids that have nothing appreciate everything. And we found that to be true. And we used to remind ourselves of that, if we felt like we were giving too much to our kids. And my poor kids, they were raised, we were pretty brutal on them because we didn't want them to grow up feeling entitled. And my kids were all raised in Los Angeles, and we didn't want them to have that spoiled attitude. So we were tough in a way that we basically made them work for everything that they ever got. And now as adults, they're all really hardworking, and they don't have that entitlement. They are so hardworking, all my kids are. And it's great to see. But when you look at the children in Kenya, they have nothing. And you would be shocked at how appreciative they are for what our kids in this culture, and again, not to take a swipe at American youth, but just saying that, what our culture might turn their nose up at. And the kids in Kenya are just so grateful. And not just the kids, all of the people of Kenya. They have a beautiful spirit. They're a beautiful people. They're humble as all get out. and they truly embrace life, and they appreciate everything we bring them. So it's a huge honor to serve them. It really is. I would say we probably learn more from them than they do from us.
That is beautiful. Because when you think about, to your point, how little they have, but how technically they get so grateful for every little piece of it, it's something we often do forget. And it's funny because I was talking to someone, and I had one of the questions I always ask is, what brings you joy? And she was like, I'm just grateful for like the littlest things. And I think her answer was like, today I was grateful for my toothbrush. And she goes, that sounds ridiculous. And I was like, no, if you can actually find genuine gratitude for it. Because I think, to your point, in our society, we don't take the moments to be like, oh, I'm so grateful I have water today, or I have my toothbrush or whatever I need. And so, to your point, I think there's something to be said about learning the actual art of gratitude from those who don't have it. And I find that what I keep hearing as a theme is that they oftentimes are a lot happier than we are as well.
I don't know how to exactly gauge happiness, but if I were to guess, I would agree with that. I just find simplicity tends to lend itself more to happiness than complication. And we have a very complicated lifestyle in this country, just generally speaking, across the board. You know, I mean, kids have to figure out, why is my battery not charging fast enough on my iPhone? We just have modern world
Problems.
obstructions, exactly, that, and, they just live a much simpler life, especially where we serve, not in the cities, in the rural regions, so much simpler. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I get a little jealous sometimes.
Jealous of?
Just the simplicity. I mean, I used to think, honestly, this is a confession, but I used to think that I was not a spoiled person. I used to really believe that I was not spoiled. And I have a hardcore side to me that I can live on very little, and I don't have a lot of demands. But the more I recognize how automated our responses are to convenience and comfort, I am constantly confessing to God, oh, I'm so spoiled. And I never used to, but I'm grateful that I see it, because to me that's growth.
Yeah.
And I really will say that working so closely with Kenya and that mission, and with the Unstoppable Foundation, I see sides of myself where I need to grow. And so that's a good thing. I don't ever want to stop growing. I never want to stop learning. And so the Unstoppable Foundation has really provided that perfect backdrop for me.
Well, that's beautiful. And I love that you are still learning and growing, because to me, it was funny. I had actually spoken with a friend of ours, Craig.
Oh, yeah.
And we were speaking, and I was like, I don't think I'll ever stop growing. I forgot what we were talking about, but he was just like, ever. And I was just like, yeah, I don't think so. I think there's always more to push. And at the point that you stop attempting to grow or to reach another level, I think you end up kind of hindering. And at that point, I don't want to call it dying, but it's almost that equivalent of like, what else are you working towards? And so, and something I like to keep in mind of like, what other areas can I be growing in right now? So I love that you have that mentality of like, how can I still learn from these children and the population?
Oh, yeah. There's so much more. I can't imagine ever. I mean, I just have an abundance of lists of things that I want to get to. And so that's, yeah, it's a good time of life. I mean, obviously, I'm in my 60s, and so a lot of people are retiring and focusing on just enjoying life, which is, it's wonderful. I certainly wouldn't, have any issue with that. I just can't imagine ever being at that place. There's so much more that I want to do. And my husband's the same way. We both just kind of marvel at the thought of retirement. It's just not really who we are.
That's a beautiful answer. And it reminds me of a few people that I know where they've attempted to retire, and then you'll see like a year or 2 years later, they'll find themselves working again.
Yeah.
Just because retirement is apparently boring for them. Their words, not mine.
Mm.
And so it's like, I love that you're also doing something that fulfills you at a spirit level. It's not just like for income.
Exactly. That is so true. Yeah, that is so true. For me, I mean, most of my jobs have not really been about the money. So I'm not really that focused on money as an individual. Um, but I mean, not that the foundation has also been very generous with me. I don't mean to say that. I just saying that I I don't work for money. I definitely work for a heartfelt call, and it is a call, and it is a spiritual reason for me. I have a very strong faith. I think I've shared that with you,
Yeah.
you know, personally. So for me, as God calls me into things to do, I have to recognize that my audience is one. I have an audience of one, and so that presses me to be my absolute best, so that I can be pleasing to God. And so that's a big driving factor in the way that I go about doing my work. And it's always there. I don't have a lot of supervision over the role that I perform for the Unstoppable Foundation, but I am constantly being supervised by God. And so it keeps me on my game.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And actually, you brought me to this premise that I always believe, that at the end of the day, whenever our time is up, you do like a life evaluation of like the person you could have been.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's just like, I don't want to waste any opportunity to live to my fullest potential and to serve at the fullest potential. So I think that's such a beautiful notion that you carry that with you on your day-to-day basis, because it's like,
Yeah.
you don't have to answer to a lot of people, but you do have to answer to your higher power. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm keenly aware of it. I am.
So one thing that really stood out to me is that the work that the Unstoppable Foundation isn't just about access to education. It's
Mm-hmm.
about what happens to the individual. So can you speak to that?
Mm-hmm. You bet. Especially now, as we really focus on leadership development, we're helping people identify like the basics, like who they are, how they feel about things. In our culture, I think we are posed with those questions throughout life much more predominantly than they are in rural Kenya. Because they are born into such generational poverty, the thought is not, who would I like to become someday? That's never a thought that a child would just have, because they're just trying to survive. Mm-hmm. And so when we begin to work with them and we ask them primary questions, we pose them with questions like, look inward and find out who you are, and like, what do you love to do? What are your strengths? What do you want to do? And so it's really a beautiful journey of helping them to unravel what their purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
And we give them life skills, not just educational, like academic is so important. Of course it is so important. But we go far beyond academia, and we help them understand about how relationships work and how to be a trusting individual, not just how to trust others, but how to be that which you want in others as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we set a very high standard. We work very much with role playing. We double the students up, and we put them in a situation where they have to work it out with another person, which is excellent life experience. So they get that hands-on experience. But we teach them, for example, if somebody that you're working with is cheating and they're taking something from work and they're taking it home with them and you see it, like, how do you address that? So we ask, like, that's awkward for anybody at any stage of life. But until you work that through and help somebody really identify what's the right way to manage that and how to find that voice in yourself. So we teach conflict resolution. We teach how to address problems head on. And that's part of leadership. If you think about it, if you're going to be in leadership, you have to not be afraid. And so we teach them self-confidence and resilience and how to overcome great challenges by posing great challenges to them. And it's just a wonderful process. It really does develop the person inside. And there's a very strong spiritual component to it as well. And we teach them to have a trust in God so that He can show them who they are. Now, we're not a religious-based organization, but the Kenyan people already have a very strong faith. And so we can build on that. So it definitely works.
That's beautiful. And when you think about it, so many things just stuck out to me. But one thing that predominantly really is striking for me is you also kind of have to give them the access to recognizing what their values might be.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that poverty level that they've experienced, for them, the basic values for them would be like, I just want to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you guys are really posing is, what if we take you from survival stages to thriving, and what does that look like? And then when it comes to values, how do you show up in the world? How do you want to be treated, etc.?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's such a unique perspective that I haven't heard in terms of any other organizations. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, because that is something so unique and beautiful, to give them the opportunity to really enhance who they're becoming and enhance their spiritual faith as well.
Yeah. No, you're completely correct. And that really does go back to Cynthia Kersey. You know, when she founded this organization, she was very intentional and put brilliant mentors around her, people who have really made a mark in the world. Bob Proctor and Mary Morrissey and Jack Canfield, and there's a host of people, Lisa Nichols and Marcy Shimoff. I could go on and on. She has just surrounded herself with brilliant, fabulous people, and their voices really spoke to her, and she really took a lot of great advice from great people. And that really does go back to Cynthia, and she instilled that in each of us, and she's built that up in what we do. And there's another piece of that. She's built her life on gratitude and generosity, and something that's really important to what I do. So I always say I'm the luckiest person in the world. I have the best job in the world. So not only do I get to serve these beautiful people in Kenya that I love, and it's such an honor, and I'm so humbled by being able to serve them, but additionally, I get to work with all of our supporters around the world. Those are our partners, and they are just the most remarkable people. They are so unbelievably generous. I'm always not just humbled by it, but a little embarrassed. Like, I'm not that gracious. Like literally, they are so incredibly gracious. And so together, it's a partnership. Like, we work together as a team, and they teach me so much about giving, just because their spirits are so generous and they just want to give. And I have the opportunity to help shape that and guide it and direct them. Like, they may have long-term goals and they don't know exactly how to achieve them, so I can work with them. So there's just so much back and forth that goes. We all grow. It's remarkable, but we do. We all grow through the process. And at the heart of it is gratitude and generosity. We just walk away like in awe.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's actually incredible. So I'm curious, in your perspective, is there a story or a moment from this work that has stayed with you?
So many, so many. I'll bring you the story of a young woman who's just incredible. Her name is Faith. She was actually one of our earliest students in one of our communities in Kenya. Olaleshwa is what it's called. And now Faith had the opportunity to go through primary school. And so many kids in rural Kenya do not, but she did. But she lived in a family that was very impoverished. She had lots of younger siblings, and so the family recognized her as the oldest. She was to the stage where they thought, okay, we have to marry this girl off because we can't afford to feed everybody. So Faith was being taken out of school and put up for marriage.
Wow.
By her dad. So that's a very common scenario in this region of the world, because of necessity, not because they want to be human traffickers, but because they can't afford to do anything different. They can't afford to feed everybody. So the girls have value, but they can be married off. So the girls are taken out of school at a young age and they're put up for marriage. And so this is what happened to Faith. But Faith, being the tenacity child that she is, she fought back, and she said, well, I'll do my chores, because they basically go into like a labor training period where they're being taught to do the chores that will be expected of them in this new marriage. So you can imagine what kind of a marriage we're talking about. And so Faith fought back, She wanted to go to school in the daytime and do her chores overnight. So she irritated the whole family by pounding and dragging and doing all the things she was doing overnight while everybody else was sleeping. And she had a miraculous breakthrough. And that was that she received late admission to our private high school that we built in that region. It's called Olaleshwa Girls School. And she was able to go to school after all and fulfill that dream that she had of continuing and being the first person in her family to go to high school. And so she ended up excelling. She became their first student body president.
Wow.
Her dad had a complete turnaround, and he began to be the most engaged parent on campus. So he had a huge change of heart as well, just by watching his daughter, who was so stubborn, who refused to quit. So Faith then went on, excelled at high school, received a full ride scholarship to a 4-year school. She was able to go to college, get a degree. She was one of our first recipients of our Unstoppable Leadership Academy training, which is a certification program where we teach these life skills that I was mentioning. And she took that back to her community after she graduated. So today, Faith is back in her original community. She's married. She has a family. She owns a business, a very successful business, and she employs multiple people from her community. But the coolest part about the story is not just watching this girl go full circle, but she also has that strong belief of the ripple effect. So everything that she's been taught by the Unstoppable Foundation, she turns around and teaches it to anybody that she can get a hold of. And so she's letting that reverberate, and it continues to spread through her community and beyond. And so that is like a poster child for what our dream is for teaching leadership to young people, to every age group. In Africa, in Kenya specifically, we're able to change so many lives by getting a hold of one or two or a group, because we teach them to pass it on, and they do. And so Faith is an amazing story, and she has a very apropos name.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And okay, I don't want to be that person to really ask this, but I'm going to be, just because I feel like it's important to cause the awareness. For those of our listeners who don't know, what age range would you say initially her father wanted to marry her off at?
She was 13 years old. And actually, in that region, that's a little old. Girls are frequently taken out of school in rural, underdeveloped regions of Kenya and other areas in Africa as well by age 8. So 8, if you think about how young 8 is, that's like playing with dolls, playing with your girlfriends. And in regions where there's no electricity, these kids have never even seen a television set. Yep. They're so innocent and so young. They're legitimately little girls, and they're married off typically by the time they're 10. So 13 was even a little old.
Wow.
But again, that's not a marriage out of romance. That's a marriage out of necessity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And the fact that she's created a ripple now is so incredible. But I had to shine the light on how young she must have been, because as you were saying that, I was like, oh, there's no way this kid was at 15 or... And even that would have been like, wow, could you imagine getting married at that age? But the fact that for necessity they have to do it at such a young age is actually crazy to think about. And as a parent, I'm sure for you couldn't even imagine it.
It's been an anchor for me, let me tell you. It's been one of the key factors that has had me so engaged with what we do. I'm so incredibly passionate about ending that, and the Unstoppable Foundation does. We provide all of the resources. Yes, so we eliminate that need for childhood marriage. It's a common practice in places in the world where poverty is
stricken.
Yeah, so I'm so grateful. I'm so proud. And I love to bring that to our supporters and just remind them what they've done, like how much they have moved the needle.
That's incredible.
In Kenya. It is incredible. It is.
Yeah, I'm honestly mind blown. So I would also love to see, what have you witnessed in these communities that most people wouldn't expect outside of the gratitude?
Well, there's lots of things that we've seen. We get stories from our frontline staff in Kenya, our Kenya team that work there in the communities day in, day out. And some of the stories that they bring us are just so moving. They've been able to intervene on life and death situations by bringing even emotional awareness and mental well-being to the table and to the training that they're providing, that they've been able to prevent people who are even desperate enough to take their own lives. And so some of these stories are very powerful and, again, very humbling. But it's so far-reaching. I hope that examples how far-reaching our work is. It's not just, and I could never say just, nothing that we do is just. It is all so important and so valuable, but it is so far-reaching that these are needs that we're seeing in the United States that are out of control. Like suicide rates amongst the young people here are out of control in this country. And so for us to be able to impact even one life and save even one life, and we have saved multiple lives that we know of, maybe many, many, many more. And so I think that we do address the whole person. It's a very holistic approach. It's not just taking care of physical needs, but it's mental, it's emotional, it is spiritual, and we're giving them such purpose. And I mean, really, God gives the purpose, so I don't want to take that, but we are helping them unlock their potential. We believe that there's a genius inside each one of them, and we really break that open and bring it forward and see their needs and see who they are and help develop that on a very individual basis. It's not just, a pat solution for the masses. It's very, very
Individualized.
It is. It's very personal and very custom.
That's beautiful. And technically, you guys might not be giving them their purpose, but you are a channel of their purpose. God is using you guys as a way to unlock that. So I think that is a
100%.
beautiful, beautiful reminder. And so I'm still in awe because it's like there's so much that we take for granted living in the United States. And I'm lucky enough that I have a mom who actually experienced communism way back when.
Yeah.
And so I remember in 2020 when things slightly looked like that, she was having this moment of like, oh God, I really don't want to return to that because of the experience. And the only reason I bring this up right now is just, I think we have such a privilege that we don't always recognize. And one thing she instilled in me is just to recognize how lucky we are, even in what might be a low moment for you individually, is still much better than someone who's in a poverty conscious place and that's their baseline. And if we think about standards, which is something I often talk about, raising the standards, that's exactly what you guys are doing for these kids. You're raising their level of what they're accustomed to and what's quote unquote normal.
Yeah, no, that's very accurate, and I think that's sort of the sentiment that I was trying to express when I was saying that I recognize that I am spoiled, and I do have to be aware of how much I have. I never appreciated water until I saw what these families drink before the Unstoppable Foundation comes in. I mean, dark brown, muddy water, and with soot and rocks in it. I mean, it's just incredible, and I just the gratitude that I've had for being able to raise a family. We used to joke, it's a miracle that we got all these kids through braces. And then we would joke, it's a miracle that they all made it to college. How did that even happen? But there is so much. And now, my kids are off and having their own families. And we're so grateful for that, for the future generation, that I just want to do everything in my personal power to sow into making that possible for these families in Kenya as well.
Beautiful.
And so it might look a little different. It maybe is not about braces and college, but it is about achieving and being, again, like we said, unlocking that potential, the God-given purpose that they have for this life. So even if we can be a small part of it, it's an honor. It's a huge honor.
Beautiful. I mean, I feel like you've already touched on this, but what impacted you most on a personal human level while working with them and seeing all the changes that are being made?
Sure. So I think it does go back, we can't help but personalize things. And so I always look at just the family that I've been given. I mean, my kids are strong and independent, and two of them are girls. And so to see the way that girls are so marginalized in this region of the world, like they grow up learning they're second. They are definitely at the back of the line, and that's just built into this culture. And so I just look at my girls, and both of my daughters are, I would call them warriors. They are both extremely strong. They're both very, very confident. They're both extremely accomplished in their careers, and they both have families. And so they have just so much, and I'm so hugely grateful. Now I know, like I always joke that they're both tomboys because I'm such a tomboy. So I know that they take a lot of what they walk into life with, from their parents. Mm-hmm. And so I recognize that we were intentional about some of the gifts that we gave them, for sure. But the fact that we could, it just makes me so much more aware of it, to see these girls in Kenya. And they're warriors too. We did, several years ago, we ran a program at a college that we funded, that we started, we founded, and we ran this college program. And one of the majors was mechanics. So historically, a woman would never be allowed to do a mechanical type of a job in Kenya. But we don't see it that way. So we certainly advanced women to be able to be a part of that. And as a result, the majority of the graduating class were female. And the photo, and that photograph is so precious. It's in my mind forever because their expressions just said, oh, yes, I can do this. And they weren't trying to project anything, I'm sure. It was just innocent. It was just a snap of the camera, but it captured that moment in time.
Essence.
Overcoming a challenge that they were born into. And we gave them the opportunity, and not only did they step into it, but they leap into it. They are so courageous and so excited for life. And so to see them, I mean, at around age 9, kids start saying, do I have to go to school, right? Isn't that kind of the common thing? Not in Kenya. One of the challenges we find for educating kids is that they won't go to bed at night because they refuse to stop studying.
Wow.
They are that passionate about it. So
that's incredible.
It is.
Wow. So you're not only doing this impactful work, you're also a mother, a wife, and holding so many roles.
Grandmother.
That's probably your favorite.
One of my favorites. Grandmother.
I literally was thinking about that as I was saying
it. Yep.
How has this mission shaped the way you show up in your personal life?
Oh, what a great question. I think it really actually has. I think that, going back to when my kids were very young, I think I told you, when they were young and I wasn't really working, full time, we would volunteer. When I say we, I would volunteer, but I would always bring my kids. So they went to all sorts of things. There was a camp in Hollywood that we used to take part in called Dream Street, and it's all run and funded by the entertainment community. So all the A-list actors, everybody was involved with that. And my kids would go to camp, and they were working with cancer kids. And so that had an impact on their lives from a very early age. And I think that we've continued to grow. I look at my kids now, and they give back. They do things in the community. They support, they serve, they give back. And it's really, as a parent, you dream of that, and to see it come to fruition is awesome. But now that we have a voice, my husband and I have a voice into our grandkids' lives, we want to encourage that in the next generation as well. And I think I might have been a little softer on this if I hadn't become really so passionate about Kenya through Unstoppable, but it is front of mind. So we give books about kids in Africa, and we just want to raise their awareness and give them an opportunity to also be servants.
Beautiful answer. And that's incredible. Raising the next generation to already have that conscious awareness of, don't just look in your 4 walls or your backyard. See what else you can do to serve at a higher level. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So how do you stay grounded while holding such a big mission?
Oh, well, that's not hard. I think being the parent of grown children, it's kind of humorous. You know, we joke like when they're young, you know, they think you're just a movie star, right? You know, you look at your parents and, oh, they're just everything. And then they get to the age they start to push back, and then they grow up, and then they start becoming very accomplished. And now, like, they keep us humble, believe me. They do. They put us in our place all the time. And we laugh, like we think it's great. I don't have any trouble being grounded. And besides that, I have such a strong commitment to serving Christ. And so that keeps me on my knees. And being grounded is not ever a problem that I have.
Beautiful.
I have multiple sources keeping me there.
Beautiful. So as we begin to wrap, I think so many women feel the pull to give or at least contribute, but they don't always know where to start. What would you say to the woman listening right now who's feeling the calling but hasn't yet acted on it?
Well, I think it's a great and important thing to look at. I think that whether you feel the call or not, I believe we all are called. I think that we actually have, in this country especially, I think it's kind of commensurate with like our level of blessing. And here you might be thinking, oh, I don't have enough money to pay my bills. We are insanely blessed in this country. And so I think that we all have social responsibility for social equity. And so I would say start today if it's not something you've already begun in your life, and it will change who you are. Giving grows our soul. It changes who we are internally, and we change from the inside all the way out. But it's as easy as, certainly you can go on to the Unstoppable Foundation website and you can give any amount in a one-time gift, or you can be brave and commit to taking out a monthly gift. It can be $5, it can be $50, it can be $500, whatever is in your budget. But even if it's not, giving to an org like the Unstoppable Foundation, which I know exactly where the money's going. You know, I don't want to embarrass you, but you've been a wonderful supporter of us. And the money goes directly to Kenya. We don't take a slice out. It goes directly to Kenya, which is remarkable. So I get to see that firsthand. But if you don't have the bandwidth to give, then find a soup kitchen. Find the local shelter where battered women are being housed, and just go volunteer on a Saturday morning. You know, crack eggs and make scrambled eggs or whatever they've got for you. There's always something that we can do, but giving grows the soul. So take that advice, and it really, it's tried and true.
I love that. And it's funny because my next question was going to be, how does giving actually transform us? But you kind of hit on that because it grows the soul and it changes who you are at the soul level.
It takes our eyes off of ourselves. Yeah. It puts them on somebody else whose need is far more prolific than ours is. And so anytime we put ourselves in that position, we, like servant leadership, we've heard that expression, but the truth is that that's what God did for us. And when we just take even a small part of that and put it into action, everything about us changes. Beautiful. And so, I have walked people from crisis, like true trauma, and by that one concept, and seen their lives completely about face.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So, what would you want people to understand about the power of education, impact, and purpose that maybe isn't talked about enough as we wrap?
Well, I think that education is both formal and then it's beyond, and it continues on. And I think that it's wise to educate yourself for the rest of your life, always, ongoing. Like never stop learning, never stop growing. But I do think that it's what we don't know that keeps us stuck. And when we expose ourselves to learning new things, we get out of the mud and we just take off. And so that's something that I think is always going to help. It's never going to hurt. I find that it's a really important part of developing as a human and having the human experience. The more we understand about other people, the more we can relate to other people, our relationships flourish. So everything grows. Everything grows. It's It's like spring in the heart of mankind. Everything's in full bloom when we are being educated.
I love this. And I guess lastly, for those who are listening, how can they get involved more with the Unstoppable Foundation? What are the opportunities there to maybe help support or serve? What is...
Oh, what a great question. There's so much that everybody can do. So we don't do any advertising. We are spread entirely by word of mouth. And so one of the programs we have is advocacy. So the key way to bring life and hope and care to communities in Kenya, advanced leadership, is financially. It's financially. We do not accept in-kind gifts, so you can't give me, bags of flour because I'm not going to mail those to Kenya. Right? And I know I don't mean to sound crass. I'm just trying to help people understand. It really is a financial gift that changes what we do in Kenya, that advances our mission. However, there's lots of ways to bring that. And so for people that maybe don't have a lot of extra funds to donate, I can teach you how to be a fundraiser and have what I call your sphere of influence be impacted by you just sharing with people what you're passionate about. And we have made it really easy to be a fundraiser, and it makes a difference. Everybody can do something. Everybody can do something, whether it's write a check or swipe a card or have a luncheon for your girlfriends and have everybody collaborate and put together a gift. That makes a difference. There's something for everybody.
That's beautiful.
If I can just say our website is unstoppablefoundation.org. So just like it sounds, Unstoppable Foundation and then .org, O-R-G. And I also would be happy to give you my contact information if you want to have anybody in your audience reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to anybody.
Beautiful. I will leave everything in the show notes.
Great.
And as we wrap up, I always end the show with a quick fire round. So think 1 word to 1 sentence answers. This should be fun. Are you ready for me?
Go.
Okay. A book.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. A book that has changed your life.
Never Go Back by Henry Cloud.
I haven't heard of that one. I will have to check it out.
Powerful.
A word that describes your current season.
Excited.
Daily non-negotiable that fuels your power.
Oh, devotions.
Beautiful. Song that instantly lifts your mood.
Only You.
Haven't heard of that one. Best advice you've ever received in a single sentence.
Never go back.
And if you weren't doing this work, what would you be doing?
Maybe something similar. It's hard to unsee what I've already seen. So I would say something very closely related.
Beautiful. And lastly, what's one thing you want women to stop apologizing for?
Who they are. Any of their shortcomings or what they see as failures. It's all powerful. It's all part of the blueprint. It's all beautiful. It's all power.
Beautiful. Well, Janet, this conversation feels like a deep reminder that impact isn't just something we do. It's actually who we become. It's the way we choose to show up, the way we choose to care, and the way we see beyond ourselves. And what I love so much about this conversation is it brings us back to something so simple yet powerful, that when one life is supported, when one child is given access, when one person begins to believe in their own potential, it doesn't just change their lives, it changes generations, it creates a ripple. So for anyone listening right now, if something in your heart is stirred, if you felt something open, soften, or expand, stay with that, because that's where impact begins. Not from pressure, not from obligation, but from connection. So Janet, thank you for the work you do, for the lives you're touching, and for the beautiful example of what it means to lead with heart, purpose, and service.
Thank you so much, Anita.